That one, and I use that a lot these days. Not just the task, but just the kind of the situational leadership, kind of like where they are, if they're willing and able, or if they're not able but willing, those just different levels. Yeah, that was very helpful.
This video is proudly sponsored by Chapman University's Archibald College of Business and Economics, located in beautiful sunny Southern California. Are you thinking about pursuing a master's in accounting? Chapman's MSA program is tailored for ambitious professionals like you. With intimate class size and a collaborative atmosphere, you will receive personalized attention from world-class faculty who bring extensive industry expertise to the classroom. Enhance your accounting skills, fulfill CPA license requirements, and elevate your career with Chapman's flexible MSA program. Discover more and apply today at chapman.edu/MSA. Hey Marjorie, how are you?
Good, Rosie. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today. And we have Marjorie as our special guest today as the owner of Marjorie McPike CPA. Marjorie, before we start for the interview, can you please introduce a little bit more about yourself?
So thank you, first of all, Rosie, for having me. I'm Marjorie McPike. I am the owner of MarjorieLMcPike-CPA. I am in Southwest Riverside County, which is north of San Diego, kind of southeast of LA. I have been on my own for 4 years, and my primary focus is small businesses. I do tax preparation and advisory, and the focus, it's small businesses, but it's also education. So I find that a lot of small businesses are not familiar with what they need to do in order to have a good financial foundation or even to understand their taxes. And so that's been kind of my focus over the past few years, is just educating small businesses and individuals and helping them to be, more informed and educated in that area.
That's really cool about what you are doing right now. And I have to mention that Marjorie and we met at carve CPA Leadership Institute. And we had a lot of fun in that Leadership Institute class. Oh my God, that was amazing.
It was a good time, yes. Good times, a lot of fun, and a lot of learning. Learned a lot of things.
I know, right? I really like the lesson about you teach people based on tasks, not based on based on individual person. So based on what the job you want to give that person, because one person may know this task so well, but may not know the task so well. So that was an eye-opening experience for me. I say, wow.
That's amazing. That one, and I use that a lot these days. Not just the task, but just the kind of the situational leadership, kind of like where they are, if they're willing and able, or if they're not able but willing, those just different levels. Yeah, that was very helpful.
Yeah, I know. This interview going to be amazing because we're going to talk so much about lessons throughout your career path. But before we go a little bit further in your career, I would like to know at the very beginning, when you start in college, why did you decide to go with the accounting major?
That's a good question. So I actually started accounting before I went to college. So when I went to college, I declared accounting as my major from the beginning. It was never, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was undeclared. I was always an accounting major. And that kind of came from a high school teacher that I had. I always loved math. And at one point I wanted to be a math teacher. And the teacher, my high school teacher, I think she was an English teacher, but she mentioned to me about accounting. And so I was like, oh, that sounds like a good field. And she's like, yes, it's an underrepresented area. Whether it's women or Black women. And so she recommended that I go take accounting. And so I did it, and I just always been in that area. My first job was as a bookkeeper. I never worked in fast food. McDonald's wouldn't hire me. My first job was in an office. So yeah, I've always wanted to do accounting.
Wow, so your high school math teacher showed you that you should go for accounting. I'm just curious, have you ever wondered that maybe you should try something more about math, like engineer major, something or computer science, something like that?
That's interesting interesting because sometimes I think about doing something more technical. So I do enjoy like automations and processes with accounting. And I was just watching something recently about the tech jobs and how much they're paying. I was like, maybe I should consider that. You know, because it's more the analytical stuff that I like and the explaining. You know, a lot of the details. You know, it's like I can let somebody else do the tax return. I can kind of review it, but you know, but that's a good question. Maybe I'll look into that as another career change.
Try another career at this point. We want you to be as a CPA because we need
a CPA, right? So we need CPAs.
this profession, so don't go away. So it looks like after you graduate, you went to work in private industry instead of public accounting. May I know the reason why you choose private over public at that point?
So when I didn't go straight through college. I had some life turns, right? So I was in college, then I ended up getting married, and so that kind of takes a different turn. So when I went back to college, I was working full time. So that's how I ended up in private industry. Was I was working full time and I was working in nursing homes. So I did a lot of medical billing and accounts receivable management, kind of like the whole CFO type of position for nursing homes. And then once I finished my degree, I decided that I wanted to go back and get my CPA. So even when I was in college, I didn't know that I wanted to get my CPA. I just wanted to finish my degree. And then once I finished, I was like, okay, I want to go back and I want to do this.
So what made you change your mind, or what made you decide that you wanted to be a CPA?
The advancement opportunities. The advancement opportunities. So you get to a point, kind of like with having an accounting degree. It's like you have a lot of experience, right? But you don't have that next step. And so for me, that's what it was. I worked in private industry. I had my degree, but in order to do something different or take my job in a way where I would earn more or have different career paths, I needed to get my CPA license.
Wow, I asked that because when I was in college, I work in private. So I had
Mm-hmm.
no ambitions to be a CPA at all. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I got my master degree, I was like, everyone talked about CPAs. Everyone talked about the 150 credits. Everyone talked about getting a job at Big Four. And then I think one time my friend, she just called me and said, hey, I'm studying for CPA exam. Do you want to study with me? I said, sure. I don't even know that why I want to be a CPA at that point. I say, I just wanted to study with my friend. So, and then somehow when I start my CPA exam, it was like, because I started, I wanted to finish it. And then I become a CPA. And then I start knowing what opportunities we have as a CPA. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like accidentally become a CPA, and now I want to encourage people to be CPAs as well.
Mm-hmm. And you've done so many things just in becoming a CPA, you know.
Many things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
also the fact that you can pass the CPA exam is required so much determined, so much like commitment and focus. So
Right.
I just think that people who can pass the CPA exam, they can do anything.
I agree with that one. It takes a lot. It really does.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much. And so when you work in private for a number of years and then you move to public, it looked like you moved to is that a small CPA firm?
Mm-hmm. It was a very small CPA firm. So what happened between the time of me finishing my degree and starting in public accounting is that I moved from San Diego, which was a larger area, to the Inland Empire, actually to Lake Elsinore. And Lake Elsinore is like an hour from everything. So there weren't like a lot of big firms in this area. So, and then I was commuting to San Diego or commuting, you know, to different places. And so I worked for a really small CPA firm when I first got started. I actually, in order to get my audit hours, I worked part-time for that firm and worked part-time for another firm just in order to fulfill that requirement.
Oh yeah, that's right. Before you have to have 500 hours in audit, and so
Mm-hmm.
and then you can have the CPA license. But now
Mm-hmm.
CPA license you have two types. You can just work in tax only, or you can
Right.
audit. So it's more convenient. But yeah,
Right.
I remember that because I had to work. I worked in audit for the first year in public accounting because
Mm-hmm.
I thought I wanted audit, but I didn't like it. But somehow that's how I get my audit
You're
hours.
out of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when you went to public accounting in the first few years, you work a lot in tax. Like, do you feel your passion right away when you started working in tax?
So, yeah, because I've always enjoyed the tax side of it. I've always prepared tax returns for other people and for myself, and so it was something that I enjoyed doing. Hmm.
Oh, what?
I did. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I did do some auditing. So I did the audit when I got my hours, and then I went to another firm and I was doing some auditing, like HOAs and escrow companies and things like that. And I enjoyed it, but I think what happened is when I decided to go back and get my master's, then the focus really changed. And that's usually how it happens, right? Once you've been in the field for a little while, then you kind of have to make a decision which direction you want to go. And so that's kind of how I ended up to the tax side of it.
Oh, you mentioned about you went back to college for master degree. So,
Hmm.
so did you go back to college for master degree because of 150 credit or just because you want to advance your skill?
Because I wanted to advance my skills. Hmm.
That's interesting because a lot of people they said that you just need to have CPA license and all other knowledge you can get it from your experience, from CPEs, from other people, from reading,
Hmm.
from researching, and you can save a lot of money from getting the master degrees because it's expensive getting a master.
Right.
So
Hmm.
based on your viewpoint, you're saying that getting a master degree going to advance your skills. Can you give me some kind of like process, the thought process, why you decide to go with a master degree at that point?
In order to get the additional skills, you have to be in the right firm, right? So if you're not being offered those opportunities, or you're not being exposed to the different type of assignments, right? You're not going to get those skills. So for me, it was a matter of going out and getting the degree because that would advance the skills that I needed. When you work at smaller firms, the the knowledge and experience that you get is limited to the person that's there, right?
Yep, that's true.
So in order to get more experience, you have to either go to a larger firm where you have different partners and different areas of expertise, or you go back and you get a degree.
So you decide to go back to get degree and stay at the same small firm.
So let's see, because I'm going to go back to when I started that. So when I was at the smaller firm, that's when I ended up getting my license, and then I went to another firm that so HR and Associates that was larger, but it was still kind of limited for me for what I wanted to do. And so I was there, and that's when I kind of started talking about going back and getting the master's. But then I didn't actually do it until I went to the firm when I was at in San Diego. So that's when I started it, and it was kind of the same thing. It was limiting for me for what it is that I wanted to do.
I understand that you say that the experience seemed to be limited from small firm, but at the same time, you probably learn a lot on the other side as well. Can you share what you learned from working at the small firm in the past?
So at the small firm, and there are advantages and disadvantages, right? There are pros and cons. One of the advantages is that you are exposed to everything. So the smaller firm that I was at, the first firm, they worked a lot with estates and trusts. So I learned to do estates and trusts. So I know how to prepare 706s and 709s and 1041s, and I've done trust accountings. So all of those different things, right, that I've been exposed to, but there could be somebody else that's at a larger firm and they might not have been exposed to that. So at a smaller firm, you get a chance to do everything. You may have to do the QuickBooks cleanup and, prepare the financial statements and do the tax return and all of that, so it's just different. And then you do have more direct contact with the owner or partner, right? So you get to, feed off of their knowledge as well. So there's advantages and disadvantages. And like I said, it was for me. I wanted to be in a position, in a place where I kind of had like an advancement path, right? So you're here for 2 or 3 years, then you get a promotion, then you're there, and then you get a promotion. And so when you're at a smaller firm, it's not always like that because you don't have the different levels of people to supervise, or you don't have the different levels of people to report to. So
Hmm.
that was kind of, for me, that's where it was.
So it means that you may have to stay at the same level for such a long period of time
Hmm.
because there's no demand to move up.
Right. There's
Okay.
nobody for you to like supervise, right? So you're not getting supervisory skills because there's nobody for you to supervise, right?
But
You know, if you're,
yeah, that's interesting. But
mhm,
then on the other side, you have an opportunity to talk or communicate with the clients sooner.
you do. Hmm. But
Yeah.
if you want to make changes, so it's kind of a trade-off, and that's what I said. It depends. It was for me. What worked for me, right? There were different things that I wanted to do, but I was going to say it depends on the person and that person's goals. Because I know people that have been at a firm that's kind of like at that level, and they don't want to supervise. They don't want to manage. They just want to come to work, do what they're supposed to do, be competent and capable in what they're doing, and go home, and that works for them. But then you may have other people that want to advance up the ladder and do different things.
Yeah,
So,
so that's why you move for the firm Hockman Cohen Tourist in San Diego.
mhm,
So it's
mhm.
a bigger firm. It's a like bigger size of the firm compared with the other two firms that you work on.
So it was bigger in a sense of they had more partners, but there wasn't a lot of moving up. So again, they didn't hire a lot of junior people so that you can supervise and review their work and different things like that. That's expected at a certain level. And that's a big thing with public accounting, is that there's an expectation, right? If you've been in public accounting for 5 to 7 years, there's an expectation that you've reviewed other people's work, you can manage a project on your own, you're a CPA, so different things like that. And if you aren't in a firm where you can get that experience, when you try to move around, then it's kind of like it makes it more challenging, I'll say.
Yeah, so it means that you will have limited leadership experience because
Hmm.
you do not have a lot of chance to lead people. That's a good point because people always say that working at the smaller firms it's so beneficial that you can see the whole picture, you can do from A to Z, you can see the clients, but we're missing the part that we do not have a lot of supervisor experience or supervising experience because where there are limited number of people within the firm. Gotcha. That makes sense. So now when you work at the San Diego firm for about almost 3 years, I know the size is a little bit bigger, but it's not that big. What did you learn in additionally on the top of the experience you learned from the other two smaller CPA firms?
It was just a matter of I was more focused on tax at that time, so that's all I did was tax returns there. It wasn't the audit. So like at the other firm, like HR and Associates, I did the audits of the escrow companies and the HOAs. So that took up a lot of my time. But when I went to just Hockman Cohen Torres, it was more just the tax preparation and some accounting services and things like that. So I think one of the things that was interesting was it was so close to the border. So one of the clients that I had was they were kind of like there were some international things that were going on. I wasn't really like involved in it a lot, but it was just interesting to know that it was there and kind of see it from a distance. I remember having to translate financial statements from Spanish to English.
Hey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was kind of interesting.
do you
Hmm.
have to translate emails as well from Spanish to English?
I didn't have to translate emails because the people on our side, they spoke English, but it's just that they had someone that was over in Mexico that was doing work for them, and so they would send us the financial statements and they would be in Spanish.
Is that because the firm has outsourcing resource in Mexico?
Mm-mm. No, because they had a company, if I'm not mistaken, they had a company in Mexico as well.
Just
Yeah. Mhm.
so
They
they
had a
have like a
company in
second
Mexico.
location in Mexico.
Mhm. In Mexico. Yeah.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
But then after 3 years you work at this San Diego firm, you moved to Soren McAdam Christensen LLP for almost 5 years.
For
So
5 years.
what
Yeah.
what made you decide to make the move?
Flory McAdam is a larger firm. So Flory McAdam was about 50, I want to say 50 employees, maybe about 7 or 8 partners. They did a lot with interns and junior staff. So it was more the different levels, right? So it's more of a traditional CPA firm where you come in and they have the different levels and you advance up the ladder.
So it seems like over time you just move from smaller to bigger, bigger, and then bigger, and then to the point that you just decide to create your own practice.
Create my own practice, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the moment when you decide to go out there and do your own, how did you feel with that moment? Did you feel scared? Did you feel nervous? Or like did you feel excited?
I felt that it was time. I had been, people had mentioned to me about, you should go out on your own or you should do something different, or I had other people that would ask me about coming and work for them and stuff like that. And I just felt that for a while I was just kind of like in a holding pattern. It's like I felt as though I was supposed to stay at Sawyer McAdam and, kind of, see what the career brought me, see what the firm brought me, and then, kind of make a decision from there. And so when it happened, it wasn't planned, it just happened. It wasn't like I said, okay, I'm going to map out this, 6 months plan and then I'm going to make my exit. It just happened. I had a decision to make and I just decided that I wanted to do something different.
Wow, you're so brave. I would be so I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I didn't have any idea what I was doing, but I just felt as though it was my time, really, I felt that it was my time.
How many people at your firm now or just over yourself?
So right now it's myself. I'm a primary. I have like 2 part-time people working with me. One is an admin person, one is a bookkeeper, kind of tax person. Looking to bring on another person next year, maybe another full-time equivalent. So maybe part-time admin, part-time, tax. But yeah.
So at your firm, you mainly focus on doing tax for small business and also focusing on educating small business about bookkeeping, about financials as well. I'm just curious that because through your experience, you work in private and then you go to multiple small to medium-sized CPA firms. You did mention that you may have limited leadership experience because they do not have a lot of people within the firm. So when you move out doing your own, do you feel like a little bit lost in leadership skills that you need someone to mentor on you through the process?
No, I didn't have even though I didn't manage people in a sense, like I didn't have a team that I was managing, I had to manage myself. I worked in private industry and I was in charge of the accounting department, right? So where if I didn't do my work, nobody got paid. Employees didn't get paid, vendors didn't get paid, nothing happened. And so I've always had positions that were high responsibility. So I know how to self-manage, self-motivate, right? I know how to communicate with staff. Even when I was working at the smaller firm in Sun City, the first firm that I started at one point I was pretty much running that office because the owner had 2 different offices. So I was there for a while, and then Boston sold it to Garrett and Associates. And so Garrett and Associates had an office in Hemet and she had an office in Sun City. And so I was running the Sun City office, doing all of the interviewing and managing the staff and making sure that things run. So I'm used to making things happen. So it didn't come as a surprise. I mean, I've managed people, I've trained people, I've taught people. It's like it may have not been a direct thing, where someone's assigned to me, but I've always been mentoring and coaching and teaching and educating and things like that throughout my whole career. So
that's amazing. And you also mentioned about your experience in private moving to public. I forgot to ask earlier that what did you feel like experience you learned from private that is beneficial for you in public accounting?
I think self-motivation and knowing what needs to be done and getting it done. It's like I didn't have anybody, kind of telling me that I needed to make sure that things were done. It's like processing payroll. You know that you have to get payroll done every 2 weeks in order for people to get paid. You have to pay bills on a certain day. It's like I just knew what needed to be done and I got it done. And I think that's kind of been something. I'm used to working independently. I'm not used to being told to do this and this and this. You know what I mean? It's like that's just how I've my career has been.
Well, I think that's how you can run your own practice. That's
Mhm.
because if you can function that way throughout your career, running your own practice is just exactly the same.
The same. Mhm. Mhm.
That's just
Mhm.
amazing. And you have been running your practice for 4 years and 1 month.
That's
Oh
right.
my God. So you just had like December. Oh,
December, yeah. So December 22nd is when I actually left the public or Soar McAdam, and then I kind of started doing things, and it just happened. It wasn't like I said, it wasn't planned, it wasn't intentional. It was just a matter of I could either continue doing the things that I was doing, which I enjoyed, which was I had did my podcast, I had created some courses, I was offering consultations to people, kind of talking to people about their tax situation. So I could either continue doing those things that I enjoyed, or I could stay at a firm where I felt limited, and I didn't want to be limited anymore. I felt that there was a whole big world out there that needed to hear what I had to say.
big news out there. I love that energy and that attitude. That's what
Mhm.
we should learn. All
Mhm.
the professionals, we should have that, like all the like I would say that skies is limit.
The sky is the limit.
That's just amazing. You should go out there and then do all the things you want, all the things you think you can do it. And
Mhm. Mhm. And
and
try.
not getting
Mhm.
just like narrow yourself down into just a small firm. I love
Right. Right. Right.
that.
That was in my one of the things that I said when I left. It's like I didn't know what direction I was going. It's like I was just going to kind of feel my way for what was exciting for me, And I felt that at that point I could. I've worked many years, and it's like it's just kind of time to do something different, do things that I really enjoy. It's like I enjoy taxes and I enjoy working with people, but it's like, what is it that really is going to fuel me? And that's something that I'm working on right now. It's kind of like figuring out what's the next step, and that's one of the reasons why I actually started the teaching position, is because that's something that I enjoy doing.